We have a shocking new update regarding Marco Rossi and where his contract currently stands between him and the Minnesota Wild, as multiple reports have come out from Michael Russo, from Joe Smith, from Ian Pulver, Marco Rossi's agent, regarding the situation. You're not going to want to miss it, as well as an update regarding Matt Boldy, and he's been given a very interesting new title among Minnesota Wild fans. We're going to be breaking it down, going over all the stuff here in this video. Before we do jump into it, though, ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't already, be sure to hit the sub button. We're covering all of your Wild content here throughout this offseason, and with a lot of stuff still on the books for the Wild, you won't want to miss it. We're on the road to 2K, and we're nearly there, so if you're watching right now and haven't hit the sub button, be sure to do so. But we need to jump straight into the Marco Rossi situation, where we're going, everything that's been coming out right now, starting off with Michael Russo and Joe Smith from The Athletic. They brought out a very interesting update regarding Marco Rossi and saying him and the Wild have not talked since early June, per league sources, with no offer sheets coming, at least for now. This might be a waiting game until the next pressure point of the negotiations, the start of training camp in mid-September. Now, this is a bit more interesting compared to where we were a few weeks ago, as the Minnesota Wild seemingly were closing in, sort of kind of getting in some numbers, getting in some negotiations with Marco Rossi. But now what we're finding out is that almost 2 months ago, but the last time that they have spoken, and this is obviously not a good update for the two parties. Obviously, Marco Rossi wants to get signed. The Minnesota Wild want to have Rossi under contract, but the two sides just haven't gotten there just yet. And with all of this still coming out, we're getting, once again, all of the trade updates regarding multiple teams across the NHL. And we have another one coming out here from NHL Rumor Report on X. This comes from Cam Robinson of Elite Prospects, from the Canucks and Jack Rostovich ongoing negotiations. If it's not him, I know they were trying to get Marco Rossi too, and maybe there's an opportunity to circle back. And that comes from July 28th, a few days ago, from the Zuccarello and Price. And, kind of going back to this idea, we've known the Canucks have been in on there. They've had a trade in reports with, the Minnesota Wild. Bill Guerin says no. And everything coming out since then has really been flatlined with that Minnesota Wild and the Vancouver Canucks in their negotiations. But now that teams are still starting to hear this, now teams are still kind of understanding now that it was a bluff from Bill Guerin saying that, hey, we'll match any offer sheet that comes out there, because they obviously would not go ahead and match a $10 million offer sheet. They would not go match a 9. They wouldn't really even, I would say, go match an 8. With Marco Rossi, they're kind of sitting firm at the price where they think he is, at around a $5 million, even though Marco Rossi himself thinks he's more like a 7.2, 7.3 style of player. And continuing on with that, Michael Russo and Joe Smith have continued to talk about the situation, saying it's almost like Guerin, who vowed to match any offer sheet, was playing a game of chicken to show Rossi's camp that he didn't buy that his threat was a real threat. And to his juncture, at least, he's been right. And now we know, at least, whatever's going down between these two parties, whatever's going down, we know that there are multiple different things that have been kind of reported out there, and we probably won't know which is true until this comes down to an end. As we see that there's supposed to be an entire market for Rossi, as Bill Guerin is kind of implying by taking the bluff. We know the Wild want him, but how much do they actually want him? Bill Guerin said he won't trade him. He said he will trade him. It's really all over the place at this point regarding anything Marco Rossi related. And we have another article coming out regarding more teams involved in trading. Now, this does come from Jimmy Murphy, so I want you to take it with a huge grain of salt. But the Flyers, we've seen them before. The Sabres, we've also seen them before. The Penguins will be a very interesting one due to the kind of style that they're in right now. The Blackhawks and the Kraken. So we're kind of revisiting a lot of these teams, a few new ones sprinkled in. You could also throw in, I would say, the Boston Bruins being one. I would say the Vancouver Canucks being one, and you see that they're not here as well. It just goes to show the sheer amount of teams that are trying to contact Marco Rossi, but the Wild are not budging on a signing nor a trade. So we're still yet to really figure out what the plan is, and I feel like me, Josh, and Mark have all been a broken record on this with all of the updates, because we're in the same boat as you guys. We're not insiders. We don't know exactly what the plan is right now for this team. We can only hope for one thing to happen, and that is Marco Rossi stays with this team or gets traded for a huge haul. I don't want the Minnesota Wild to rush this. I want them to make the right decision, and we know that we want them to as well. We don't want this team getting rid of a guy that they think they can have for years to come as a future number one center. If you have to get rid of him, go ahead and do it. If you don't, make the right decision. It's a very kind of back and forth style of play that these two teams are playing, and these two parties, I guess we should say, are playing, and we're still in the middle of it all, and we don't know what is happening just yet. And as we look at the offense, the offense on Puckpedia still has Marco Rossi listed as the center, or second line center, and at this point right now, we could assume that he will be here. I don't want to say he will be because it's hard to, but right now, they are not even taking him out of the lineup. He is an RFA still, but they're, they've taken out names before that have been in the RFA market. If they're not re-signed or if they're not extended, they'll take him out of the lineup. And when it's coming down to, taking a look at what could be here, and we can assume that when Danila Yurov at least comes into this lineup, he will likely take over that second line center if Marco Rossi is not there. If so, there could be a move to the wing or something, but right now, they're not even putting Danila Yurov in this lineup, but keeping Marco Rossi in here. So I don't know what the plan is for both sides here. I think I want something to get done as soon as possible. Obviously, waiting until September, mid-September, doesn't seem like the most ideal way to run this when you're kind of coming into a season where you want to be good. You're trying to get past the first round of the playoffs. And even though Marco Rossi was on the fourth line in the playoffs, throughout the 82 games he played in the regular season, he was probably the second best player the Wild had consistently. And once again, the stats are the projected contract from AFP Analytics are not changing. They still have the 2-year projection. They still have the 7-year projection. Still at the exact same dollar amount for each year. So nobody's budging, whether it's the reports, whether it's these websites keeping all of us updated. Nobody is moving on the matter. So I wanted to bring it to you guys, and it's a bad update to bring because obviously we want to see something done, but the way we are right now, there's nothing more we can add to it except just the time waiting. But we have one more update from Ian Pulver, Marco Rossi's agent, on the topic. He says there's clearly a difference of opinions with respect to Marco's value. We will continue in good faith to engage with the Wild to attempt to reach a resolution. We understand that Billy likes Marco, but for how much and in what role going forward? That is subject of great debate. Now, it does seem like Ian Pulver thinks that Marco Rossi should be on the second line. I think that Bill Guerin also thinks he should be on the second line, and it does seem like the way that the playoffs went last year for this team really ruined the relationship between the two parties, and I think we should put it to the side and get things going. I want to know what you guys think in the comments below, but Bill Guerin has had other priorities in the past few seasons, and one of those was Matt Boldy, getting him signed to a 7x7, and taking a look at this, with the salary cap expected to rise each year over the remaining 5 years of Boldy's current deal, his value should only increase as time goes by, and even if he remains, he just maintains his current production levels, of course his general manager Bill Guerin believes he has the talent to do more. And going back into this, Bill Guerin is on record believing that Boldy could be a 50-50 guy, capable of scoring 50 and adding 50 assists, with the spot on the top line all but cemented. The winger should have opportunity to in the world to achieve either one of those goals. And of course, Matt Boldy, 7x7, and this comes from an article from Gone Puck Wild, the Minnesota Wild, reporting that he has the best contract in the NHL and will ultimately be at one of those points. And I think that's absolutely correct. Having a 7x7 for a guy like Matt Boldy, who at this point right now, if he was due a contract extension, would likely be upwards of $10 million. Having him locked up at 7 for multiple years is so exciting to be a Wild fan, especially when you have a guy like Kirill Kaprizov, who's likely going to get a $15 million deal, a crazy number, probably NHL record setting, and having that deal really helps. And this also comes down to how it's affecting Marco Rossi's market. Is he worth more than Matt Boldy? No, but they do have Matt Boldy on a steal, so there's two sides to this coin that really worked out. Obviously, it is a phenomenal contract, probably one of the best in the NHL if it's up to me. The Bill Guerin, Minnesota Wild, have been pretty good at that, especially when it comes to Joel Eriksson Ek, comes to Matt Boldy, some very good contracts. And if this could happen as well with Marco Rossi, things are looking great. And I did want to pull up one more thing, kind of a comparison here of showing how contracts will decrease in value, increase in value, decrease in price over the next few seasons, as you do have the contract projection for Elias Pettersson over the 2024-25 cap, and you see right now 25.11.6. You bring it up to 2028, that will be around the average or the price tag of a current $9 million deal. So you can assume how much value is going to be kind of increased in that Matt Boldy deal when it comes down to a few years' time. Will likely be around the price and kind of the value of what a $5 million player is right now. So this is going to be a very good thing and a very exciting thing to see over the next few years with how the Minnesota Wild can kind of manipulate these contracts that are coming and the ones they currently have. So let me know what you think about Marco Rossi here in the comments below as well. Do you agree with Matt Boldy being probably the best contract per value in the NHL? Let me know what you think about all of that. That's all I got. If you did enjoy, give it a like, hit the sub button as well. I'm signing out, though. Thank you for watching. Hope you have a great day. See you later.